Welcome to The Jewish Lens, a podcast to discuss anything and everything from a Jewish perspective. Now, please help me welcome the man who controls the media, your host, Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of The Jewish Lens. I'm Jonathan Rosen, and today I am thrilled to welcome the authors of the great new book, Countering Antisemitism and Hate, a how-to guide for youth 8 to 18, family, and educators. And so please help me welcome Lynne Azarchi and Harlene Lichter Galen. Lynne and Harlene, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting us.
We have a lot to cover, but I want to start by asking if you could both tell me a little bit about yourselves and your background. I guess we could start with Lynne, and let me just hear about, a little bit about both of you.
Well, thank you again for having us. These are really extraordinarily difficult times for Jewish youth and Jewish families.
Jewish anything. Yes.
So we will talk about that, and we're here to help. So our journey, and I'll let Harlene speak for herself. Dr. Galen has been with Kidsbridge Youth Center. We've started with anti-bias when it was called diversity appreciation, and now we call it anti-bias, anti-racism. But for 21 years, helping kids. So our mission has been bullying prevention, anti-bias, anti-racism, mindfulness, respect, kindness, teaching kids social emotional skills. So it's been a long journey and pivoting to the need of the kids. And so I will tell you, about 4 years ago, I did a listening session for the Federation, JCRC, Jewish Community Relations Council, and this is way before October 7th. And anti-Semitism is bad, was bad, is bad, and the kids are suffering, and we were doing nothing about it. So I went to Harlene, twisted her arm just a little bit, and she'll tell you about her acumen. But she said she would jump in and do this journey for me with our goal to help kids and to help families stand up to anti-Semitism and other bias safely.
And Harlene?
Yeah, well, my background is education. I've been in it for most of my life. Jewish education and public school education. Started in nursery school, was the first director at a temple, and then in public school have taught every grade, pre-K through 8, and have been a principal for 2 different schools, 26 years, and then have taught at 3 universities, teacher education. Started to work with Kidsbridge with Lynne some 16 years ago and have chaired their education committee. And the need that she approached me with was so deep that I just had to join her. So we've been working together way before the book, and we hope that we can get this book into hands of those who are willing to show their kids how to react safely when they are the targets of anti-Semitism.
It's a great book. I was looking through it last week. First of all, can you just tell a little about the book itself a little bit before we really dive into it? Just the basics of the book.
I'll start, and then Harlene, do you want to start?
No, fine. You start, and I'll join in. Go ahead.
So I'm really passionate about empathy, and I had an epiphany, 17 years ago. Empathy is job one, and so this is the empathy foundation for Jewish families and kids to care about themselves, self-empathy, self-identity, and that leads to Jewish identity and pride. Empathy for others. We care about our Jewish community, our Jewish family, but we also care about other kids. Other kids are suffering from bias today. And finally, to be an upstander. I don't know if you're familiar with that word. Upstander is a person who stands up and speak out. So what our goal is here is to coach families, parents, grandparents and Jewish teachers to do more, which is to stand up and speak out. We can't be, hushed and quiet and be bystanders and running away. So our goal is to, upon these foundations of pride and identity, to do something we really haven't done before. As a majority, we need to stand up and speak out against all bias.
Right. So in the book, we start with building up the background of our students who happen to be Jewish. We lay out briefly the problem of escalating anti-Semitism so that they have a background. And we talk about bystanders, which is what most Jewish people have always been. When there's a problem, we tend to hide. So we acknowledge that. And then we go into a brief exploration of Jewish history, including the Holocaust, but we look at positive things that come out of the Holocaust. And the purpose of that is to build identity and values and pride in their Judaism. And then the section that is Lynne's favorite is how to use empathy. That comes next. Then we talk about building a TEAM, and I'll let Lynne, who's a former cheerleader, really was in high school, but that's not the kind of team she's talking about. Though after I finish explaining the rest of the book, I'll let her explain what she means by capital T, capital E, capital A, capital M. And so after we go in that background, the majority of the book is activities, and they're outlined according to grade. We can start even with preschoolers.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah. First of all, I didn't know the term upstander until your book. I actually saw it there. But how did you two meet? I want to know.
How did we meet? Okay.
That's a good story.
Yeah. I'll let Lynne tell it and then explain what she means by TEAM.
Yes.
So Kidsbridge was homeless and a not-for-profit organization going into the schools and faith organizations. And I found this fabulous exhibit facing prejudice and discrimination for kids. So we got a partnership with the College of New Jersey. We were on campus in the education building, and we would bring in school classes on campus and teach the college students how to work with kids, teaching respect and kindness. So for an education student, right, that's job one, to work on the social emotional skills. So I would go upstairs and ask the professors who would like to bring their undergrad students in education down and teach the kids kindness, respect, all the other aspects of kids being a hero, kids standing up, and of course, to face bullying, how to handle that, and to be upstanders. So Professor Galen was one of our favorite professors. She would bring her college students down, and together we would help undergraduate students and master's students in college learn how to teach these very important skills. Yes. And we've been together ever since. So then I pulled Dr. Galen's arm again, asked her to join the Kidsbridge board. Kidsbridge is still in existence. And she became, obviously, I can't count the decades of acumen, that she became chair of the Kidsbridge Education Committee.
Right. And now, Lynne, you have to explain what TEAM means before we talk about the activity.
Okay, so team. So it's an acronym, and I wanted to make it cute. It is Together, Eliminate Anti-Semitism Momentum. We were looking for new momentum that, we tell Jewish parents to talk to their kids and listen, and middle school and high school are hard, but these are extenuating times that we really want parents, grandparents, teachers to have these tough conversations, because our kids are suffering silently. It's very hard to get the statistics, but in our world where we're talking to religious school teachers and we're talking to parents, it's happening. And we talk about, Jonathan, the adults, but we're asking to pivot and ask that team is a concept now, a new concept for parents and their kids, for Sunday school and religious school teachers and their kids, and grandparents need to do more. So this is the new teen concept that we have.
So the different activities, we give them safe strategies that they can do immediately after being involved or seeing their friends involved in an anti-Semitic incident. Then we give them a second set of strategies, and we call them RIGHT, RIGHT, after strategies that they can do after the situation is encountered. And then we give them later strategies that they can use. And they're explained step by step, and they're in language that children at different levels can understand. So the activities in the remainder of the book are set up to illustrate what we mean under each of the other categories that I talked about, the Jewish history, the use of empathy, the use of team. The activities are divided that way, and the age appropriateness is given for each activity so that parents don't have to read the first part of the book if they don't want to. Same with teachers, same with older kids. They can just flip to the activities and pick the ones that they want. Well, and it is illustrated also, so that it's not just words. There are graphs.
It's in the book. It's not just for someone who's already encountered anti-Semitism. It's a lot of it is good because you have it set beforehand, before you reach that point, just to discuss and talk about it a little bit. So I want to know what prompted you to write it? I mean, just give me through the process a little bit, because did you just one day say that, this is so bad, like we should do something? Is that how it came about?
So I can answer that, and Harlene, you should answer in your way. So
Right.
I'm on the board of my JCC. Almost half of the children, and we have 300 kids, do not belong to a shul, do not belong to a synagogue. Where are they going to get their Jewish identity and pride? So we talk about Israel, we Tikkun Olam and Jewish ethics and values, but the summer is great, but it's not enough. So it was surprising to me to find out that so few homes today, Jewish children, they are not belonging to a synagogue. And it could be economic, it could be a multi-faith family. But so there's a need for our book, right? Jewish Identity and Pride. And there are many books on identity and pride, but we deal with that because that's the foundation. And then the second part is that we do a lot of research at Kidsbridge. We are bystanders, not only Jews, we're a bystander society. We're a preponderance of us, we're afraid, we don't know what to do, we're afraid, and so we do nothing, right? And so there's, from what we've learned, and Harlene's talked about the strategies, that it's not hard to stand up and speak out when you have strategies and you know what to do. Strategies Harlene can drill down on, but you don't have to do it alone. You can do it with your counselor, you can do it with your teacher, you can do it with your parent, your grandparent. So it's, how do you get to Carnegie Hall, Jonathan?
Yes.
Yeah, practice. Right.
So that's what this book is about. It's not like, oh, I should have had a V8. If you can't respond immediately, guess what? That's okay. You can respond later. And so we're trying to build community among Jewish peers and in our Jewish community that it's time to all help each other. It's not to be so isolated as a family unit. And so this was my epiphany of hearing that we need to help Jewish children more. And that's why looking in this space and not seeing this kind of book and not seeing this kind of program in the Sunday schools, and we'll talk about that later, that I personally felt this had to be done. Harlene?
Yeah, and as far as writing goes, I mean, Lynne and I had written grants for years I had written curriculum. That was one of my major responsibilities as chair of the education committee, to pull together what the other educators brought. And these were helping the general population of children to stand up against all kinds of biases. So the writing component was there. I also had published a book and had chapters in other books and many articles in professional journals. And Lynne had written op-eds forever. So we had the writing background, and the need we felt was so acute that we wanted to do something. And since we had the ability to put something in writing, and we did a search of what was already on the market, and there wasn't anything like this, we decided to go ahead and write it. So that gives you the background of how it came to be.
I'm also curious, did either one of you experienced anti-Semitism in any capacity before?
Yes, throughout, and we go into that in the book. We can give you a little summary of what's in the book, but in my case, it was ongoing. I had it as a child. I was the only Jew in the neighborhood, and had harassment as an ongoing happening daily at one point. Had it in job-related interview and another. So direct experience, and my children also had it. So I have 3 children, Lynne has 2. And of my 3 children, my one daughter, Pamela, had it happen more than once, and the others had it happen to them. And these were in integrated middle-class communities. But yes, personal experience we've had. And I'll let Lynne talk a little bit about her own. And then one instance that she says in the book where her son, Jake, did not act as a bystander, but an upstander. So Lynne, why don't you share that?
So I'll start with that story. I guess my son was in high school. He's in a pizza joint, and he's sitting at a table munching on his pizza. Behind him, 2 older men were talking, and something like they should have killed all the Jews in the Holocaust, something like that. Well, my son stood up, turned around, walked to them and said, "I heard that." And they said, "Oh, whatever you said. I heard what you said, and I'm Jewish, and I'm deeply, offended or hurt." And they sort of said, "We didn't say that, or we didn't mean for you to hear whatever." So I was so proud of him, because that's an upstander. He felt he heard something that was grossly inconsiderate and wrong, and full of stereotypes and bias. And he stood up and spoke out. So I'm very proud of my son. He's 30 now. And anyway, so for me, I'm in 9th grade, hanging out in Trenton with all my Italian Catholic friends, and I'm the one Jew there, and everything was cool. Well, I was in the home of one of my girlfriends, and I can see the scene in my mind, because it was like being struck over the head with a 2x4. And they were talking about how the Jews killed their Lord. And it was the first time I heard it. And it was like those cartoons where you just shrink into like a little ball. So from that moment on, I realized that there were thousands of people, and my friends' parents, who were thinking me as a Jew who killed their Lord. And it was a rude awakening, so much so, Jonathan, from that point on, I really felt like the other. I became branded as the other. And I will be honest with you, I thought it would be wise to hide my Judaism. So for me, walking in my shoes, walking in Harlene's shoes, to have that burden and responsibility, it's something I think I've never shook. And I think it's another reason that I wrote this book.
I think we've all been there a little bit. I mean, I had the same experience that, you have non-Jewish friends. It's either that comes out at some point, or also, I've been around people who just, totally just throw away the line, "Oh, I Jewed him down about money or something," So,
Right.
right. So you have some quotes from kids here in the book too. So did you speak to a lot of students for this also, or other people just to get some
We
feedback?
have, and I'll let Harlene take it next, but we have talked to a lot of, excuse me, middle schoolers, high schoolers, um, uh, education
Mhm.
uh, teachers for Sunday schools of what they're hearing, parents. I had, of course, I told you the listening session 4 years ago, and this is what I've heard. Harlene?
Yeah, and those are quotes that we got permission from the people. We didn't
Right,
just use them, but
of
they
course.
come from our experience, and we'll talk a little bit about the expanded educational component that is in the works now. And earlier this week, we did some videotaping for parts of that. These are videotapes for teachers, and one of the teens who was helping illustrate our main points shared with us, and this happened to her 2 years ago. She's now in 11th grade. It happened to her in middle school, and she explained the anti-Semitism that she experienced. So it's still ongoing.
Relentless
Yeah,
for 2 months.
2 months.
And it
Yeah.
won't surprise you that a lot of the schools are broken. And if the principal or the teacher, the counselor don't do anything, it's swept under the rug.
I hear that often, and that's my next question, as a matter of fact, is that is going on to an unbelievable degree right now, and it starts at the elementary schools. I mean, we'll get to the colleges in a second, but let's start with the elementary schools because you said it targets ages 8 to 18 as well as family and educators. So, what do you see that's going on in the schools with regard to that? And let's start with the elementary school because there's a ton of indoctrination against to have Jew hate starting even in elementary school. So, what do you see going on?
Well, let me start with the war has made everything really worse. I
Right.
mean, it's all this is rising up, but I do want to sort of segue and share with you from research that bullying and bias, we're talking about elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
What age do you think bullying and bias start at?
When does it start? Yeah, most people don't know this.
Well, I'm going to assume it starts at the very youngest age because that's what they're being taught right now. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
going to start even saying in kindergarten things.
go
That
lower. It starts at age 3.
Uh,
Statistics show. And this is decades old. It's not just
uh,
currently. So,
decades, it's millennia,
yeah,
millennia old,
but
right?
it hasn't been documented, until
Yeah,
fairly
yeah.
recently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we can start in elementary school, Jonathan, but we want your listeners to know that we just real if they learn one thing today in your family, in your home, in your shul, in your classrooms, we need to start earlier and help our kids.
Right. And as far as school goes, we do have a section in the book where we outline how and you don't do it alone, how you can go and talk to the principal, or some school districts now nationwide have someone who's in charge of bullying and talk to that person. There are ways that you can help get the message out that any type of bias, any type of bullying should not be in a public school. So we do outline that in the book. Specifically, people can follow it.
all right. Well, let's go a couple of steps here too, and we'll get to the colleges in a second here too, because I've spoken to many people, and in the colleges it's just horrendous what's going on right now. But in the schools as well, I hear a lot of the same things that when it comes to any other group that you complain about something being harassed or whatever, the schools are quick to jump on it and to squash that. When it comes to Jewish issues, their schools either try to downplay it or even outright ignore it. I've spoken to people who they reached out to principals and they don't even get return messages. So what happens? What do you advise in that situation? Because there's always two different categories, and you even mentioned it before, Lynne. You started talking about you were very quick to point out. I'm not just talking about anti-Semitism. We talk about all these different biases too, and
Yeah.
that's great. That's great and good. But and you used, the big progressive key term, anti-racism, which, we can all start with that. I can do a whole different show about that thing. But when when you're quick to, try to look after every other group, it's not reciprocated. So
we are finding that here in New Jersey, Harlene, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So it is swept under the rug, and we're Jewish. We hear what you're saying. It's not taken as seriously, maybe because people perceive us as white Americans, but anti-Semitism is ignored and not treated seriously in many schools. We have a lot of recommendations. So one idea comes to mind, squeaky wheel. If your child is suffering, there must be other children who are suffering as well, right? This is a system that is broken. One thing parents can do is form a group, and that's been happening in the Princeton area, where parents get together, 3-4 parents, have coffee, figure out what they want to do, and demand a meeting with the principal or the counselor. That is not enough to meet once. This is a project where you are encouraging the school to take on anti-bias and anti-Semitism programs to teach kids that all children deserve respect. I'll tell you another problem we have nationwide, Florida, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. Teachers are supposed to be teaching the Holocaust. In many states, it's mandated by the state, and they're not teaching that the Holocaust happened. I forget what the statistic is, Harlene, you might recall,
right.
But a majority of students have never learned about the Holocaust in this country. That's a shanda. And we have Holocaust deniers today. And the social media makes our jobs so much more difficult. So again, our book, Let's Do More. Adults, please do more to push back against this. Harlene?
Yeah, adults make the mistake of trying to do it alone. You have to take a group with you. And even if your request is negated the first time, you have to be persistent and try. And then if you do succeed in having a meeting and an agreement is reached about what the school has done, many parents just drop it there and then nothing happens at the school level. And that is because it's up to the committee to keep after the school and subsequently and really make a pest of yourself in a nice way, but just be persistent. So the responsibility does not end with you reporting it to the school. The responsibility extends beyond that. And Lynne mentioned a group. There's a strength in a group that you do not have as an individual. Now, there are organizations, and we go into that in the book too, as far as reporting the incidents, and some of them have a track record of getting something done, and others have a track record of not getting things done. So, I mean, we do mention in the book, reporting. There's a whole section on reporting in the book, and that is a way to get action sometimes, not all times.
I think you're right
Jonathan,
with the squeaky wheel part. I mean, I'm sorry. I think because
because reporting is one of my passions.
I think you need to go start getting others involved as well, like press even. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, here's something I discovered. I'm on the board of New Jersey American Jewish Committee, AJC, and we had a subgroup on reporting, and we're looking for statistics of reporting, on anti-Semitism all over New Jersey. For most townships and districts, the number was 0. And this is part of the problem. We need, as upstanders, as Jewish people, a Jewish community, we need to report because we don't have good statistics, because people are afraid. You can report anonymously. You can, and it's safe to report. But until the schools and the communities and the police districts are getting real information, we know it's a problem as Jews, but other people may not understand. This is really hard, and it's harder for our kids.
Well, just going back to the thing, yes, I do think reporting. That's what I was talking about a second ago. I think there are times that you will need to involve, like if a principal ignores you when there's an anti-Semitic incident, that's outrageous. I mean, that should never ever happen. And once is horrendous enough, but if it's repeated things, I think you have to start getting others involved. You have to start getting, going to the press and things to that, because like we spoke about a few minutes ago, their Jewish issues there's a lack of concern with it when it comes to that.
And if I could interject, if
Sure.
the principal or the counselor teacher ignores you, you can go to the school board.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's a public forum. Everybody gets 2 minutes, 3 minutes. There are many different ways to, again, comfort to be in a group to get action and demand action of respect and kindness.
Right. It's the persistence that we do not do. I mean, okay, I reported it and they didn't do anything. No, you have to keep going. Keep going, keep going. And I say this as a former principal. I mentioned when I gave the overview of my background. I mean, I was a principal for 26 years, and yes, there is a way. If parents come, they're persistent but respectable, and I'm repeating that, respectable, make their demands. Then eventually, if it's not the principal, then the superintendent or the school board will listen to you. But you can't lose your cool. And that's one of the things in our book. We give a lot of background on making yourself calm first, if you're an adult or if you're a child. So yes, but yeah, persistence pays.
Well, one of the things that you have, the whole point of the book is to try to get it implemented in schools and things like this. So how difficult is it to get programs to combat anti-Semitism in schools? Are you making any progress, do you see, in that, or are you getting roadblocks?
Well, we are starting with, the book is families and teachers. So we are starting there. We could, if Harley and I have the energy, could then offer this program to public schools. But right now, religious school teachers, Jewish religious school teachers, don't know what to do. And so that's our first foray. And so Harlene and I will talk about that in a minute. But I want to tell you what the deficit in schools. And I know this through the lens of bullying prevention, because our years with KidsBridge, we've done a lot of bullying prevention. It is cheaper for a school to attend to bullying prevention by doing an assembly program. They bring in a speaker for $1,000, or maybe anti-bias speaker for $1,000. You have 900 kids in the audience, and they check off the box. They've done bullying prevention or a Holocaust education. You check, right? You bring in a God bless survivors, one survivor, you check the box off. That's not education. The kids are not learning. The kids are writing notes like I wrote notes in assembly programs. So the other problem with public schools is that an assembly program, to Harlene and I, is not evidence-based program where the kids are going to learn anything. The way our program works, it's small groups, is that if these public schools were serious about reducing bullying, about reducing bias, about reducing anti-Semitism, they have to do the work. And what is the work? You can start with an assembly program, but then the kids break into small groups, and there are prompt questions, and they process, because I found, and Harlene, I'm going to pass it to you, these kids are learning more from each other than they are from us old people. So it's broken. It's so broken, Jonathan. Would we aspire to get into the public schools? Bless us. We hope so. Maybe one day. Harlene?
Right. Yeah. Right now we're concentrating on our religious school teachers. That's our next step, because religious school teachers often are afraid as well. And when Jewish children turn to them, the teachers themselves don't know how to help them. So Lynne had mentioned we've already piloted with 2 different congregations, a conservative and a reconstructionist, and we have their educational directors and their rabbis working with us. That's our next phase. So, and we have supplements to the book that are more related to the teaching of the content. So that's our next step. Public schools, I think that's down the line. I don't think that we have the bandwidth to concentrate on them right now.
You also say, one of the things in the book that you have there, I saw, is that Jews need to acknowledge that things are happening. They have to realize it instead of hiding their heads in the sand, as you put it in the book. So this is one of the things that's always infuriating to me, is the notion of turning a blind eye to anti-Semitism. It's if it comes from people that we previously liked, there's a willful ignorance always to what's really going on. So what do you say to people to get them to acknowledge even that something is happening?
Yeah, you have to be strong. You have to be in control. You have to speak in a conversational tone. You have to stop the misconception by providing the fact. But a lot of it is not accepted because of your body language. So we make a big emphasis when we're dealing, and we've done this in our meetings so far with religious school teachers.
Mm-hmm.
We make a big point of practicing with them the body language that says, I am being assertive, not aggressive, assertive. And this is the truth, not what you believe, but this is the truth. Does it take practice? Yes, lots of practice. Can everyone do it well the first time? Absolutely not.
So for both of you, it really should start. The book is useful to many people, but it should start way before even they reach school. It should start with the parents at home talking about.
Yeah, and let's talk about grandparents.
Yeah.
Kids are on their phones. We babysit, kids are on their phones. They're not learning anything. Here's a great opportunity for Jewish grandparents to teach identity and pride, share their stories. I can't ask my grandparents questions. They're gone. My parents are gone. But another aspect I'm working on is Jewish genealogy, that kids prize and value their heritage. So how about a grandparent talks about their parents, what the struggle it was to escape the Nazis and come over here. So there's so many things that Jewish parents and teachers and grandparents can do. That's what we're encouraging. And I just want to follow up on what Harlene said about the system. Another goal of this book is we don't want parents to only care about their Jewish children. The system is broken for Jews and anti-Semitism. We want Jewish adults to be upstanders and to care about all the Jewish children. And so together in bigger numbers, we're going to repair the system. We can attack anti-Semitism stronger if we care about more of our Jewish children. Do you know what I mean? It's not just our kids, it's all the kids. We have to care about all the kids. We have to be a Jewish community.
Well, I agree with you on that. That's part of the thing that you started talking about before, is forming groups to get together, seeking out other Jewish parents and, forming these, these groups to look after everyone, just, make and force answers a little bit.
Yeah, let me just interject one more thing. Let's say we just met this young girl who was being bullied for 2 months. So the school might fix it that she's not in the same class with the person. We don't call them a bully anymore, the person who is biased, prejudiced, the person who caused harm. So that a family might fix it for their daughter. But if that person who's causing harm is in another class, he's going to bully somebody else, right? Yes. So it's just, I want Jewish tikkun olam. Let's start repairing the world for our Jewish kids. And when we do that, we will also be role models, setting an example for the Muslim kids who are, they're all terrorists is the stereotype. The Asian kids are suffering. The gay kids are suffering. A lot of the kids are suffering. We just really need to do a better job.
So what advice would you give to kids or people, I guess, who are struggling, either parents who are worried for the safety of their kids who are scared to be visibly Jewish in schools, or teachers who don't know how to tackle the subject. I mean, it's everywhere. Whenever I post anything Jewish, like even when I post episodes of this podcast, I will get trolled online. I'm an adult. I'll handle it. I could post, nothing about anti-Semitism, nothing about Israel. I could just be talking to a celebrity, and I'll get, underneath Free Palestine or genocide, underneath just the most innocuous, thing. So
Thank you for being courageous.
Right.
What do you say to parents who are struggling, or people or kids who are struggling right now?
Okay, I would say you have to start with yourself. And this is what I mean by that. What do you do when you, the adult, are faced with a negative situation? And many of us as adults don't have the skill of taking care of ourselves first. So what you have to do is find out how to calm yourself down, and how to calm yourself down in a way that can't be detected by others. It has to be something that you do to calm yourself down, and then you can look at the situation in a very different way. Because when you're afraid or angry, you do not handle what you're saying and what you're doing the same as when you are calm. So I would say start with yourself, learn the calming techniques, and then you can pass them on to the younger set. And Lynn, what would you say?
Well, this is another tangent, but because I'm on the JCC board, I think parents and grandparents can do, and at some of the kids at camp, the grandparents are paying for them to go to camp. I would like Jewish parents to think about better increasing the devotion to pride and identity. A JCC summer camp, great place to reinforce pride and identity. Maccabi games, I think they're saying their motto is building Jewish identity through sports. There are sleepaway camps. So there are, other than in the public school and the synagogue, there's so many other ways to build your child's Jewish identity and pride. Get to work and get your kids among Jewish kids, because that we feel the other, walking in the shoes of our Jewish kids, they feel like the other. How relaxing and comforting it is to be surrounded by all Jewish kids. You're not the other anymore. So look for more groups where they're surrounded by Jewish kids, is my suggestion.
And kids can also, start their own groups in school. You can go close to school. I mean, my daughter started a Jewish group in her high school. So it is possible. You can go out and seek out other Jewish kids, so you do know that you are not alone.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So your book is an excellent guide. I thought the book is tremendous. It's an excellent guide to start there. What other resources would you suggest?
Well, in the guidebook, in the back are websites, organizations, national. I mean, there's too many resources in here to mention, but I would like more to encourage Jewish parents to teach about the Holocaust, and I call it flipping the Holocaust. There's a Holocaust museum. Of course, it has to be developmentally appropriate, but there's many ways you can teach about the Jewish partisans of World War II, the upstanders, the people who stood up and speak out. By the way, two things going on in New York that if people are in the New York area, one is an exhibit of how the Danish rescued, it's for kids. It's a kids exhibit at the Museum of Jewish Heritage in Manhattan, and how the Danish people rescued Jews. It's for kids. In January through May, there's a replica at the Holocaust Museum of the Anne Frank house. So there's those kinds of things, books, have discussions. And I have a confession downstairs. I have my kids' books for Sunday school and Hebrew school. And Harlene hasn't heard this. I looked at them, and guess what? They're empty. Why didn't I, as a Jewish parent, because, Sunday school, they're not going to do the whole book. Sit down for 20 minutes on a Sunday or a Monday and take one of the activities, or, go to our website. We have a lot of stuff on our website. And as Harlene said, there's a lot of activities in our book to build identity and pride. Oh, and by the way, our website, jewishupstanders.org.
I was going to ask you about that too. Please give me both your social media. Both of you, give me your social media, all the places that we can find you.
For me, LinkedIn, Jewish Upstanders we're on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and the website.
Yeah. Your best bet is probably the website to start.
Yeah, the website again, because I was probably talking over and I don't want to.
Jewish Upstanders, one word, .org organization.
And what are you both working on next?
Well, thank you for that question. Go ahead, Harlene.
Yeah, right now we're concentrating on the Jewish religious schools, and we've done videotapes that teachers can use to introduce them to the main concepts, because we know there's a whole continuum of teachers in Jewish education religious schools, among all except the Orthodox. We have public school teachers, and sometimes we have just interested parents who want to give back to their synagogue, so they teach in religious schools. So we're doing the taping of the overviews for the teachers. We're working on that, and we're working with several religious schools right now.
So we're piloting that and very excited. I do want to add, Jonathan, that our book was accepted by the Jewish Book Council.
Oh, good.
So we are really grateful to be in that cohort. So I am traveling around the country, speaking to Holocaust educators, parents, shuls, JCCs, and federations. Sometimes I talk to the kids. Sometimes I talk to the parents. I'll be in Miami next week. And so if there is a listener there, that we can zoom in anywhere, right? We can zoom in anywhere and do a parent circle or talk to the kids. And it's a kickoff and it's a start, but it's nice to feel you're not alone and somebody is listening to you. And we're here to help. Harlene and I are here to help and to coach.
Yeah, and I don't travel. That's not what I do these days, but we do Zooms together, and we've done a few of those, through Jewish Book Council, to those who have responded that they would like to know more about our work. So if the people who are seeking more information don't want an in-person, there's the alternate on Zoom.
And what if people want to get involved?
Wow, that would be great. We haven't thought about that before, but there we can coach people to get involved. I think that we want people from different communities to say, hey, why don't we have a parent Zoom? Why don't we have Lynne come out and talk about how to push back against anti-Semitism safely? So people go to the website and reach out to us. We're here to help communities and kids.
I want to thank you both. I thought the book was fantastic. I really do think it's a great resource. Like I said, I was looking through it, and you have it really written in a very simple way to make it very easy to understand and to follow the steps. And it brings up good discussions as well within households or within schools or classes like that. So I definitely recommend everyone to get it. Again, the book is Countering Antisemitism and Hate, a how-to guide for youth, 8 to 18, family, and educators. Lynne and Harlene, again, thank you so much for coming on. It's
thank
really
you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, again, this has been The Jewish Lens. I'm Jonathan Rosen. Again, a very special thanks to Lynne Azarchi and Harlene Galen. I'm sorry, I pronounced it wrong before Lichter. I'm sorry, Lichter Galen. I did pronounce it wrong at the beginning. So again, thank you both. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thanks for tuning in to The Jewish Lens, where all items used was strictly kosher.